Hello, my name is Alexei Novitzky, and today I'd like to introduce the conscious connection, conscious plugs, and dimensional lenses. Quick background, I am a theoretical physicist and lifetime practitioner of meditation. I've written 4 books on the topic. Your Influence in Space shows us how your body's light encompasses the entire universe. The liquid light state universe describes the universe as if matter is manifesting at nodes of overlapping electromagnetism. The Crystal of Time shows the moment when the universe first collided with time and also discusses habitable zones for human consciousness. Time Atom puts you in the center of time and shows you that your consciousness is eternal. The very first thing we're going to do here is talk about how matter forms at nodes of overlapping electromagnetism. And this comes from when looking from within the universe, from our perspective. So here you see an incoming light state, right? And based on how the light adds and subtracts, is what kind of matter will appear. I'm going to explain that a little bit more here. And so the easiest way to think about it is you have your incoming light state. Let's turn it into a square, right? So now you have a square, and you have x, 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 and x. Those are your values. If it's x inside the box, there's nothing there, right? But you can trick the light state in a way to where you can have all the numbers on the outside add up to x. So it's in perfect harmony is the easiest way to put it. So inside the box, you can have any type of structure, and outside, there's nothing left in a way, because you could say that the numbers have canceled out anything that comes outside. Okay, so this is called a magic square. And I didn't derive this, okay? This comes from ancient megalithic sites. They come from ancient knowledge. Here you can see a couple ancient magic squares that are found at megalithic sites. So now let's go work backwards from the magic square. So here you have your magic square, turns into a circle, turns into what I call the magic sphere. So you have your incoming light state, and you have your ability to create any type of structure inside. But as long as those add up properly, it can exist within the light state. So that was the magic square. We'll talk about that more in a second. And so from your influence in space, we talk about space preparation. And this comes more from looking outside of the universe. Empty space prepares itself before matter shines. And what you see is that matter, you could think of it as in a way as light. Matter forms when we're accelerating at the speed of light. And the easiest way to think of it is that if you're accelerating at the speed of light, photons cannot emit in that direction, right? They're frozen in space, and they become entangled with themselves. So light being shot in the direction of acceleration looks like matter. And this is one way to think of it. Imagine you have a long field of scaled waveforms, and then here you have your magnifying lens, or your perspective, orbiting the center of all moments, the center of time. We'll talk about that in a second too, with an acceleration towards center at the speed of light. I'm not saying you're orbiting at the speed of light, I'm saying your acceleration towards center is. And so this lens, this spot right here would have this entire green wave crunched because it's accelerating at the speed of light. And anything like a photon trying to shoot off would be stuck in that same frame. And as this circles around, you can see how matter would manifest and dissolve away, manifest and dissolve away. This would blipping in and out of solidity. This second magnifying lens here shows a second person in a different orbit through time. And so now you can imagine these two people are on the same exact spot, but this one's in this direction, or their acceleration is, and this acceleration is in this direction. And so they have a different warping of their spheres. This gives you a different perspective of that same view. So in order to perceive manifesting reality, consciousness must harmonize with the universe. they must be in tune with each other. So basically you could say that the universe has a state of rotation. You could say that your consciousness has a state of rotation, and that in order to perceive manifesting reality, consciousness must harmonize. They must be in that same state of rotation. And so what we did here was we figured out, you could say, a theoretical diameter for human consciousness. And so we got the conscious snapshot, which would be how many times your brain takes a picture of reality within a second, and we multiply that by the speed of light. From that, we're able to calculate a theoretical diameter of the longest standing wave. Standing waves are what allow you to perceive reality. And so the longest standing wave ends up being 1 times 10 to the 7 meters. And so this represents the crunching of light in your conscious now. So you can see as you're orbiting through, light is crunching. So this is the crunching of light in your conscious now. And so now we're going to take a look at the crystal of time. And what this has a lot of things, but the important takeaway right now is the moment when the universe first collided with time. So here you see an incoming universe, and it collides with time. At that moment, you could say time is sort of a prism, and conscious experience separated like into the spectrum of conscious experiences. And what I'm saying is that the red relates to your delta, the purple relates to your fast gamma, and these aren't actually red or purple, just making that clear. Down here would be the lower verse, lower than delta, and in here would be the novi verse, faster than fast gamma. Those are the harmonics of conscious experience. And so you can see each one of these has a ring relating to it. And the important factor is that we're accelerating at the speed of light, right? We need to be able to have photons frozen in space. And so consciousness must harmonize with the universe to perceive reality. So now let's take a look at human consciousness. Here we have normal universe, right? Delta to fast gamma. That's our experience. What we say is anything faster in your consciousness, as far as harmonic resonance, than fast gamma, we call that the novi verse, and anything slower we call the lower verse. Okay? And so then we got that 1 hertz wave, which is the longest wave. Here we have 2.5 as your average, and if you were to divide 2.5 by 2 one more time, you would end up with 1.25. That's still within the delta range. So I don't know if we'll just leave that alone. That might be a clue for some other field. But so at 1.25, you could say that there's a different harmonic than 2.5. And point being is when you get that longest wave and you wrap it around the center of time, knowing that it has to accelerate towards center at light speed, that gives you 1 radius. That gives you the allowable radius, because you know your time is 1.2 hertz. So then you could say that your velocity is 2 pi r over t, and you know that acceleration is equal to the speed of light, which is c, which is equal to v squared over r, right? So you get c equal to 2 pi r over t squared divided by r. From that, you get a theoretical diameter for the delta wave. That number matched exactly the same number as the predicted theoretical number, which was 1 times 10 to the 7 meters. And so when you get the average here, you can get the theoretical cloud diameters for each of these harmonic resonances associated with consciousness. So now you can say that each one of these habitable zones relates to a certain conscious harmonic. Okay. From that, you're able to put all those together and create what I call the time atom. So this has, all your harmonic resonances and the cloud diameters. And so this is a nice picture. You can see all the different rings, but that's not to scale. If you draw it to scale, you end up with something like this, where your theta is 1/4 of the diameter of your delta. And that pattern continues onward, inward, as well as outward. Right? The 1 harmonic of lower verse would be 4 times greater than the size of the delta. Okay? So now let's keep moving forward here. And so now you have your magic sphere, right? You have your time atom, and you have your time atom to scale. Now let's look at how the magic sphere relates to your time atom. So here you have basically how the magic sphere acts as your mind, body, and spirit antenna. It's the easiest way to put it. When you harmonize your sphere to have the interior rings is when you get the thicker dimensions of experience, right? So you could say that this first ring would represent a delta, and the second would represent a theta. So then you get your delta, theta, alpha, beta harmonics, right? And from this structure, you're actually able to create the perceivable universe. That just so happened to match up with my magic sphere. Realistically, I should probably add a second interior ring to each one of those for the magic sphere drawing. But so I did that in the next set here, where I show the magic sphere and I do three-dimensional drawings of how your mind, body, spirit antenna can reach those different dimensions of conscious experience. So here would be your delta alone. Here would be delta with, once you have the theta going. And now once you get this big circle to act as one of those circles, so each one of these circles now has 4 rings in it, you end up with your, delta, theta, alpha. So this is your alpha drawing, right? Delta, theta, alpha is the green. And then if you go to the next set, this shows all the way up to beta. And so you can imagine what slow gamma could look like and what fast gamma could look like. And so you can say that this is your conscious plug. It's like your adapter, right, for which thickness of reality you want to experience. So consciousness must harmonize with the universe to perceive reality. This is your magic sphere up to beta verse. And so if this is your consciousness, and you know that consciousness is tuned to some sort of structure in the universe, it only makes sense that this would be the perceivable universe. Would be that same shape, but in pipe form, right? So where you can see that there's actually orbiting the harmonics, right? And so that relates to each one of the orbits. Here, in your time atom, in your crystal of time, you can see that there's the orbiting universes. And so each one of these pipes is a different orbiting universe. You could say that this would be the related to the delta harmonic, then the gold would be the theta, the green would be the alpha, and the blue would be the beta in this case. And I just put a little sphere on the end of it to show how it orbits. It makes that constant tone to make that resonance that you perceive. But just to explain this real quick, you could also say that if you wanted to expand it a little bit more, you could say that this red ring represents the lower verse. Each one of these oranges represent a delta. Each green represents a theta, and then the blue would be your alpha, right? So this continues onward, inward, and outward. And so now this shows human consciousness plugged into the perceivable universe. This would be, one person's experience, and this would be another person's experience. And they're both in the same field of time, but they're having completely different conscious experiences based on the tubes that they're plugged into. Just leaving it so you guys can see for a second. And so now we're going to talk about experiencing an alternate dimension, right? Because that's the goal here, the interdimensional telescope. So there's 2 ways you can perceive an alternate dimension. One is just to increase the spiking height of your magic sphere. So there's supposed to be a beta in here, but you keep harmonizing, you get to beta, slow gamma, fast gamma, and then you would get to what I call omega, alliverse, demiverse, stellaverse, petraverse, and micaverse. That entire field itself would be called the noviverse. And so if you wanted to shift your entire experience to the noviverse, the higher harmonic up, or to the lower verse, you need to insert some type of lens between your conscious sphere and that of the universe you're connecting to. And so, like I said, one way to do that is to increase the harmonics in your brain, your consciousness, your conscious antenna. Another way to do it is to physically push and stretch space-time to where those rings fall into your waking state, right? Because here you can see interdimensional, that's too close. The Aliverse, that's at a diameter of 625. The beta waking state is at 40,000 meters. So you would need to stretch that interdimensional ring to match up with your beta ring, right? So that's how you would create an interdimensional telescope. And if you wanted to look into the Noviverse, you would need to essentially create a 25-mile long tunnel. So your betaverse would be harmonizing out here. And the Noviverse would naturally be existing at 2,500 meters. So I think it's like 1.2 miles-ish. So you'd want to stretch the space from 1.2 miles all the way to 25 miles. So that just expands it, but then you would have to make sure that the orbital rotations are still the same, and so you would want to create that torsion field that slows it by 4 times in this case. So depending on which harmonic resonance you want to experience is how long the effect needs to be, right? If you want to see the microverse, the cloud needs to start from 2.4 meters away. If you want to see the Aliverse, it needs to start from 625. If you want to see the lower verse, your cloud needs to extend from past 25 miles and come towards you. Okay? So this is just human consciousness, right? Plugged into a universe. No dimensional shifts in this drawing, right? This is just normal human consciousness, delta up to alpha, delta, theta, alpha, plugged into the human consciousness, okay? And so what we have here is the interdimensional lens that I showed you here, right? So it's a stretching force and a rotating force. So you end up getting something like this, where this is your interdimensional telescope or your lens, the end of the lens, and it creates the stretching force and torsion force allowed for your natural plugs to plug into the fatter tubes, right? So you can see here, these blues are plugging into these greens, but in this drawing, these greens are actually these bigger pipes right here. And you can see I have consciousness plugged straight into the bigger pipes with the use of the interdimensional telescope. So hopefully that makes some sense. And I just wanted to throw out this last slide right here. Oh, this is, or one more after this. So this is just another drawing showing how your plug can be rotated to where it matches the normal rotational harmonics, as well as expanded or contracted to match either the thicker or less thick layers of experience. And this is the slide I'm just throwing out for fun in a way. One thing that you just kind of naturally notice after looking at all this is that at ancient sites, as in the magnetic hotspots of the Earth, there are a whole bunch of ancient sites, right? And at those spots, you have naturally occurring magnetic vortexes. At those spots, you find magic squares, okay? Those magic squares are literally imprinted on megalithic structures, which are bowls, pyramids, and made of specific materials. For me, it's kind of obvious that ancient sites acted as interdimensional telescopes. And then you get people having certain experiences where they literally write out binary code, and when that binary code is deciphered, it says advancement of mankind, and the coordinates given are all these ancient hotspots. So if anyone wants to work with me on this and create what I would just call a collimator, let me know. We can create a collimator and take a look, and it would be based off of the coordinates that are already on the ancient sites. So thanks for your time, or rather experience. And if you guys want to, you can like, subscribe, hit that notification. But if you want to actually support, I guess I have the 4 books written out, luciuslabs.com. And then in order to promote, my message of world peace, I invented a skateboard and turned him into a cartoon character. His name is Ollie the Skate Case, and him and I have been on adventures for the last about 10 years, promoting innovation, creativity, and sustainability. For example, I've given 3 lectures at Smithsonian Institute, the Ripley Center, the Air and Space, and the Museum of American History, and then also, local high schools, colleges, uh, lectures for opening STEM night for middle schools, things of that nature, all while promoting innovation, creativity, and essentially following your dreams. Because a lot of this information and information that I've used in my life has come from my dreams. So that's there. And then also, if you guys are into crypto, you can get Lucius Labs tokens on the Waves exchange, which can be used to purchase these things. Each one's like $10, so it's almost like a gift card at this point. But at the same time, I want to build a vacuum blimp, so I will be accepting those for trips on my vacuum blimp. Yep. So thanks for your time, and have a great day.